Welcome back, everyone, to another Masonic Shelf Short. Great Masonic education in 10 minutes or less. We have a great program for you tonight. I am one of your hosts, Chris Williams.
And my name is Brad Kohanke. And as Chris said, we do have a very special guest this evening. We have Demelza Reichenberg, who is past worthy matron of Seguin Order of the Eastern Star, number 555. She's got a very interesting program tonight. I think you're going to like it. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
The opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not represent the views of any Grand Lodge nor a pendant body of Freemasonry.
Hi, my name is Demelza Reichenberg, past worthy matron of Seguin Chapter 555, Order of the Eastern Star, Grand Chapter of Texas. I am also wife to Jason Reichenberg, past master of Victory Lodge 1160, and granddaughter to Charles Welch, past matron of Verona American Lodge 674, Verona, Italy, and a 50-year member of Elmer Timberland Lodge 54 in Annandale, Virginia. Both of my grandparents were members of Eastern Star Faith Chapter 177 out of Annandale, Virginia. I also have an uncle, aunt, and son that are also active in various orders. I am also active member of Ladies Oriental Shrine of North America, Altrui Corps 89, and Daughters of Mocana, Almala 99 here in San Antonio, Texas. Today, I'd like to spend a little time talking about Ruth, the second heroine of the Order of the Eastern Star. To help us understand why Ruth holds such an important place in our ritual, I'll be drawing from three sources. The first is the Manual of the Order of the Eastern Star, adapted to the System of Adoptive Masonry, written by Rob Morris and arranged by Robert McCoy in 1873. I'm also referencing Let There Be Light by past Grand Matron Beulah Malone of Oklahoma, published in 1958, along with portions of our current General Grand Chapter ritual. One of the things I enjoy most about studying our ritual is discovering why Rob Morris chose these particular heroines and what he hoped we would learn from them in our lives. Sometimes we become so familiar with the symbols and ceremonies that we forget there are real women, real stories, and timeless lessons behind them. I want to begin by sharing Rob Morris' own words about Ruth and why he believes she belonged in the Order of the Eastern Star. Writing directly to the women of the order, he said, and I quote, "Freemasonry in its obligations, emblems, and principles is peculiar, and that we, as Master Masons, are taught to respect devotion to religious principles. Upon the first entrance into the Masonic Lodge, we testify our faith and trust in God. Therefore, when we find in history a person who forsakes home and lands and parents and country through piety to God, we seize upon that character and hail it as Masonic. Such a character, forcibly delineated, we discover in the Book of Ruth," end quote. These words really set the stage for understanding Ruth, who is not simply as a biblical figure, but as a woman whose life reflected the very principles Freemasonry seeks to cultivate. If you're not familiar with the biblical story, let me give you a brief overview. Ruth was a Moabite widow who chose to remain with her Israelite mother-in-law, Naomi, after both of their husbands died. Instead of returning to her own people, Ruth declared that Naomi's people would become her people and Naomi's God would become her God. Through humility, loyalty, and remarkable courage, Ruth eventually met with the honorable landowner Boaz, who became her kinsman, redeemer, and eventually her husband. Their marriage became part of God's greater plan, as Ruth would become the great-grandmother of King David. Her story is one of faithfulness, redemption, and trusting God's providence, even when life seems uncertain. One of my favorite parts of Ruth's story is her time as a gleaner in the fields of Boaz. Under the laws of ancient Israel, landowners intentionally left grain behind so widows, strangers, and the poor could gather enough to survive. Ruth didn't expect anyone to rescue her. She simply went to work. Day after day, she gathered grain, one stalk at a time, to care for herself and Naomi. It was her quiet diligence, humility, and unwavering character that first caught Boaz's attention. That makes the sheaf of barley Ruth carries in our ritual especially meaningful. It isn't simply a symbol of harvest, it's a reminder that faithful service, patient work, humility, and perseverance often become the very tools through which God blesses in our lives. Of course, we can't talk about Ruth without talking about Boaz. Freemasons immediately recognize the name because Boaz is one of two great pillars that stood at the entrance of Solomon's temple. Along with Joachim, the pillar symbolizes strength, stability, and God's covenant with his people. For Masons, those pillars remind us that true strength is found not in power, but integrity, faithfulness, and moral character. It is a beautiful connection that ties Ruth's story directly into Masonic symbolism. Past Grand Matron Beulah Malone beautifully expanded on this lesson in her text, Let There Be Light. She wrote, quote, "From this lesson of Ruth, we learn true constancy, both to service and the people of God is always rewarded. Plant seeds of friendship, and in due season, you will reap the reward of golden friends. If we bind love and constancy together with patient industry, we will glean the golden grain of life's harvest," unquote. I don't think there's a better summary of Ruth's lesson than that. As Eastern Star members, Ruth challenges us to think differently about success. She asks us not to hope to receive, but what we're willing to give to our families, our sisters and brothers, our communities, and to God. Her greatness wasn't built on recognition or position. It was built through countless small acts of faithfulness, compassion, humility, and service. That is exactly why Ruth represents the yellow point of our star. The lesson isn't simply industry, it's constancy. Ruth teaches steadfast faithfulness to God, to family, and to duty, regardless of circumstances. The golden sheaf reminds us that patient perseverance eventually bears fruit, while our ritual also associates Ruth with the jessamine and the lily of the valley, symbols of beauty, humility, and loveliness among the lowly. They remind us that true beauty is found in character far more than appearances. I think that's one reason Ruth speaks so powerfully to women today. Whether we're balancing careers, raising families, caring for our aging parents, volunteering in our communities, serving our chapters, or simply trying to be faithful in everyday life, Ruth reminds us that our greatest legacy is not built through titles or applause. It's built by quietly showing up, keeping our promises, extending grace, and choosing integrity, even when no one is watching. In a world that often celebrates being noticed, Ruth teaches the timeless power of simply being faithful. My hope is that this discussion encourages you to look beyond our stated meetings and spend time studying all 5 heroines of the order. Read Rob Morris's original writings, explore the work of the scholars like Sister Beulah Malone, because the more we understand the stories behind our ritual, the richer our membership becomes. As our husbands, fathers, sons, brothers, grandfathers, and other Masonic family members continue their own journey through the lessons of Freemasonry, we have the privilege of growing alongside them through the lessons of the Order of the Eastern Star and the other Masonic organizations available to women today. Together, these teachings strengthen our marriages, our families, our chapters, and our communities. Freemasonry and the Order of the Eastern Star were never meant to stand apart. They were designed to complement one another, building our lives of character, faith, service, and love. Thank you so much for spending this time with me as we explored Ruth, the yellow star point, and the beautiful symbolism woven throughout our order. I hope our conversation has inspired you to look a little deeper into the lives of our heroines and, more importantly, to carry Ruth's example of constancy into your life each and every day.